There was a time when I could watch the news and just take them at face value. I mean, not blindly, but there was a baseline of trust. Now, every time I watch the news, there's this little voice in the back of my head that is constantly questioning everything. Who wrote this? What's their angle? What are they leaving out? Or is this even real? And honestly, the clickbait headlines don't help either. I hate those. So it's like I've come to expect dishonesty, not just from random social media posts, but from mainstream media too. Just the other day, the great CoffeeZilla exposed the New York Times for writing an article that was basically an ad for what allegedly seems to be a massive scam. It's messed up. We've reached the point where I don't know what or who to believe anymore. Now, this didn't happen out of nowhere. I've seen so many fake news, so many random statistics used to support an argument, but then when you scratch below the surface, it's all just smoke. Or stories and interviews that are sliced up in a way as to present a story that doesn't really reflect the truth. And I've seen it from the left, from the right, from every single side. I mean, at this point, I think it's undeniable that we live in the era of misinformation and manipulation. And it's not only because certain people can profit from our misinformation. There's definitely some of that, of course. But I think that most of the times, it's about the incentives. It's not a conspiracy, it's just simple economics. There's a certain type of content that just performs better. So as a result, that's what gets created, that's what gets promoted and consumed. I mean, it's no coincidence that most of the information we receive is negative. Crimes, scams, conflict, outrage, that's what gets the attention, that's what spreads, and that's what ends up making the money. Now, faced with this scenario, we have two choices. Some people have decided that it's easier or more convenient for them to just believe, and as a result, they now live in information bubbles where they accept the content that they receive almost like it's faith, like it's a religion. And that's to the point where they have to juggle their experienced reality to make it fit the mold of what they're being told. Me, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. So I'm left with the second choice, that is to recognize that whatever I'm told might not be true, and since I don't have a magic wand to automatically detect lies, I'm forced to question everything. Now, the first choice is obviously bad because it forces those people to live and take life decisions based on wrong assumptions about how the world works. But here's the thing, I've come to realize that the second choice is bad too. And that is surprising, because you'd think that questioning what you hear is a positive attitude, it's critical thinking, right? But there's a tipping point. And beyond that, critical thinking starts feeling like constant suspicion, almost like I'm paranoid. And it's tiring, and what's even more frustrating is that it doesn't seem to be taking me anywhere. I'm arguably consuming now more information than ever before, and yet I feel less certain about things than I used to. It's like even when I'm informed now, I'm also misinformed at the same time. It's crazy. And after a while, I think that does something to you. Because without trust, information stops being knowledge and becomes noise. And noise is exhausting. So I've noticed a scary evolution in the way I consume information. I'm going from being skeptical to being cynical to start to reach the point where I'm just tired of it all. So I fear there will soon come a time when I stop asking, is this true? And I'm just gonna sigh and not even bother because trying to figure out if something is true or not will feel too much of a hassle. Now, individually that's scary, but collectively, it's horrible. It's horrible for democracy, it's horrible for the economy, it's horrible for social cohesion and stability. Because when people cannot agree on what's real, they cannot cooperate, they cannot build, they cannot trust each other, and that's where the problem spills into the real world. I just came back from spending a week in Hong Kong, and something interesting happened there that I think is the trigger for this video. Basically, I had arranged to meet my friends to play some board games like we used to when I used to live there, but I couldn't find the board game cafe, so I just tried asking someone on the street. But when I approached a man who was passing by, something unexpected happened. The man jumped back in fear. I'm not kidding, you could see it in his face, like he saw a demon or something. I mean, I know I'm not particularly handsome, but I don't think my face is that scary. But afterwards, as I thought about it, I realized that I do also react that way sometimes when I'm approached by strangers. Never so visibly, of course, but I think that the thought behind is the same. I've realized that the way I react to strangers approaching me has changed without me even noticing it. So in the rare occasions when it happens now, the first thing that pops into my mind is not to think that they might need some help or that they're just trying to be friendly, something that I would have thought like maybe 10, 15 years ago. But no, I most often now default to the worst case scenario. I'm like, ugh, here comes trouble. Probably they want to sell me some shit or scam me or distract me while I'm getting robbed. So I tense up, and since I feel endangered, I automatically try to move away. It's like I don't assume good intentions anymore. Like I expect social interaction with strangers to involve risk because I expect the worst of others. And now that I'm aware of it, I don't like it. But I'm sure this is not just happening to me. So I've been trying to understand, why is this happening? Is it because people have suddenly become worse? Well, if you look at the objective data, it isn't. But since we're presented with a reality through a negative bias, it does feel like it. If all we read or hear about is crime, the world feels more dangerous. Just think about it. There were way more serial killers in the 70s and 80s than there are today, but thanks to true crime series and podcasts, we are way more suspicious of others right now than people were back then. And sure, sometimes that instinct is right and it protects you. But when that becomes your default setting, it's a clear sign that something else has started to break: social trust. And that changes how we interact. Actually, it changes whether we choose to interact or not. A few years ago, you would get into an elevator with a stranger and at least you'd say good morning or talk about the weather. Today, we get into an elevator and suddenly everyone becomes deeply interested in the floor or their phone or anything else that helps them avoid that brief moment of human contact. We walk past hundreds of people every single day and we don't acknowledge a single one of them. We don't even look at people straight in the eyes anymore. And if someone does look at us for a bit too long, it feels uncomfortable, almost like they're breaking an unspoken rule, like they're crossing a boundary, and just like that, they feel like a threat. So we avoid eye contact, we avoid conversation, we avoid engagement. And slowly, without realizing it, we disengage from each other. At the same time, something else has been quietly disappearing: the village. Not literally, of course, but the idea of it. Today, most of our interactions happen with strangers, and it stays that way. You don't really know your neighbors, you don't talk to the people you see every day. And thanks to online shopping and home delivery, you don't even build those small, repeated connections that used to form the fabric of everyday life. So instead of living in a community, we live among strangers and it feels unsafe. So we retreat into our spaces, our routines, our screens, until we become isolated islands existing side by side but completely disconnected. Now, have we lost our trust in others because we are alone, or are we alone because we cannot trust others? I don't know, but either way the situation is grim. And just when you think that it cannot get worse, here comes AI. For my entire life, there has been something I could consistently rely on: my perception, my own two eyes. Seeing was believing. I mean, as long as I'm wearing my glasses, that is. But not even that is true anymore. Now, with generative AI, realistic images and videos can be fabricated with a simple prompt. Voices can be cloned, people and faces can be made to do or say anything. Even entire events can be simulated. We saw it recently with the reaction videos from Venezuela and Iran. And worst of all, none of that is done in an obvious way anymore. Fake content is increasingly indistinguishable from reality, scaringly so. To the point that when I see something shocking, now I'm forced to hesitate. Is it real? And that is dangerous. Because once you lose confidence in what you see, you start losing confidence in everything. And I've seen it happen. Like, I spent a few hours the other day writing a post on Reddit on a topic that I was researching for one of my videos, and even though my voice and my style is clearly not like that of an AI, still someone immediately wrote, "This is AI slop." And you know, it hurt. All that effort, seriously, hours crafting a post, and for what? I mean, sure, I had hundreds of other comments and likes, and some people even sent me money through Reddit Awards for the first time, but that one comment irked me so much that I haven't written another post yet. And this experience made me realize the unintended consequences of our AI hyper-awareness. We are no longer just doubting what's fake, we've started doubting what's real. When we see talent, it's AI. When someone says something meaningful, it's AI. When someone writes or talks well, it's definitely AI. And that creates a very messed up reality where even the people who are trying to fight against AI and put in the work and use the real human talent get dismissed as AI slop. The consequence is obvious. Eventually, no one is even gonna try because what's the point? We live in a world where authenticity has become almost impossible to recognize, where effort has become hard to trust and therefore hard to justify, and where human expression is slowly becoming questionable or even worse, extinct. And when you combine this with everything we've talked about before, the consequences are chilling. Because trust is not something that's just nice to have. It's the invisible infrastructure that holds society together. It's what allows strangers to cooperate, and by doing so, it sustains our economy, our political system, it turns our neighborhoods into communities, and it provides an important psychological safety net that keeps us healthier and happier. So without it, everything else that we've built on top becomes unstable. Without information you can trust, you either fall into blind belief or total disengagement, and neither of those are good places to be. Without people you can trust, you stop interacting, and slowly your world becomes smaller, more controlled and predictable, and that makes you easier to manipulate and you feel lonelier. And without a reality you can trust, well, you're f***ed. How is anyone ever be able to understand each other? The result is something very strange. We are technically more connected than ever, and yet we've never felt so distant. Because what we've gained in availability, we've lost in depth. And I keep coming back to this idea. There's a lot of talk about the epidemic of loneliness, but I think that is connected with an epidemic of depth. I think that's the greatest loss of this generation. Loss of depth in our conversations, depth in our relationships, depth in our understanding of the world. Because, well, everything has become faster, more efficient, and more accessible. It has also become more superficial. We scroll more, but we reflect less. We react more, but we understand less. We communicate much more, but it's with short messages, emojis, likes, and hearts. And as a result, we connect way less. And I'm worried because I'm seeing how over time, this changes us. It makes us more anxious, more isolated, and more passive. And that last one, I think, is the most dangerous of them all. I'm afraid that slowly, almost without realizing it, we're gonna give up. We're gonna give up on understanding, on connecting, on trusting. And I'm worried that there will come a day when that might feel normal. So the question is, what do we do about this? Because this is way too big and complex to solve overnight with 3 essential tips. One thing is for sure, someone else is not going to solve this problem for us. But that doesn't mean that we are completely powerless. I know trust is fragile, I tell that to my kids very often, but it's also something that can be rebuilt. And I think that it starts with something like this video, with simple awareness. Just noticing what was happening, that has been massive for me. Noticing how quick I am to doubt, how easily I assume the worst, and how often I disengage. Because it's only after we see it that we can change it. And I've been taking a few steps in that direction. First, by setting some boundaries. I'm being pickier with the information I consume, so instead of trying to know everything, I'm trying to be more intentional about what I pay attention to, and I'm using that focus to get better at telling what's true and what's not for those specific topics. The rest, I'm filtering out more and more, or I just consume it as entertainment. Then, I'm making a conscious effort to engage in human interaction, and I know that makes me sound like a robot, but it's true, it's something I've been already doing for a while. I'm going out of my way to engage with strangers or with casual acquaintances, and I'm trying to go beyond the surface and dig deeper. Sometimes with something as simple as keeping good eye contact or asking better questions. And let me tell you, the more I do it, the more I smile and say hello and engage, the less others seem like a threat or a nuisance, and that gives me hope. And there's another layer to this, because I think that now, perhaps more than ever in history, is when friendships are really gonna matter. Building a tight group of people that you can implicitly rely on and trust is gonna be essential for keeping your sanity in this world. I made a video about this a few weeks ago, so feel free to check it out. Finally, I've been working on my mindset, because the world is not suddenly gonna change and just like that we can trust everything again. But believing in nothing is not sustainable either. So I think we're gonna have to find some sort of balance, like being critical without becoming cynical, or being aware without becoming paranoid, or cautious without completely closing yourself off. I don't think rebuilding trust means becoming naive or believing everything. It means resisting the urge to believe nothing, leaving space for the possibility that some things are still real, that some people are still good, and that there are still some interactions that are worth having. Because the alternative is simply not acceptable. If we fully give in to this trust, if we assume everything is fake, everyone is dangerous, and nothing is really reliable, then we'll reach the point where the system doesn't need to isolate us anymore because we will be doing it ourselves. And I think that's the real danger. Not that trust is disappearing, but that we stop believing that it can exist at all.